Hey everybody, welcome to the People and Perks podcast, where each week we sit down with a employee benefits vendor and give you insights into the best benefits on the market so you can make better decisions for your people. I'm Sean, founder of Perkwise, the UK's first employee benefits discovery and review platform.
And I'm Adam Bell. I'm an employee benefits specialist at Wingate Benefit Solutions. And this morning, we're very lucky to be joined by a serial entrepreneur. I was on your LinkedIn this morning, Lucy, and I've come up with this intro. A serial entrepreneur. You were named Small Business Britain's top 100 female founders this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're a founder, you're a speaker, you're a maternal wellbeing specialist, and now, obviously, your most recent is MAIA. So, Lucy Wilson, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, very excited to be here. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to found MAIA.
Yeah. So my journey with all of this started obviously when I became a mother, but that's a long time ago now. So nearly 10 years ago. And my first son was born with a rare medical condition, which meant that he had to have an operation in the first 5 days after being born, then another 2 operations in the first 7 months. And I thought I was ready to become a mother, but nothing could have ever prepared me for any of that. And I was quite traumatized by everything that we went through, and I didn't really get enough support. But I carried on anyway, as you do, because you just have to. And then 3 years later, we had our second son, and he was born healthy, so that was all fine. But he didn't sleep very well, and then so I was really sleep deprived. It's quite difficult. I don't think people always talk about how difficult it is when you have a second child as well. And he, older brother did not like younger brother coming in and taking his, taking all the limelight off him. And then unfortunately, 5 months into Bertie being born, we went into lockdown. So all the support that I was getting, because I'm very lucky to live close to my parents, had to just stop. Sebastian had to come home from preschool. He wasn't allowed to go because he was just on the cusp. He was just a bit too young to keep going. And also because he had this medical condition, he was one of those people where they say, oh, if you've got a pre-existing medical condition, then we don't know how COVID will impact you. And the year before, he'd had flu and he'd been really ill for 3 weeks. And we'd ended up having to take him to hospital just because he got so dehydrated. So I was just anxious beyond belief, like ridiculously anxious, and I had no sleep, and that is not a good combination. And after a while I just got really sort of depressed, and I talk about it as a bit of a breakdown. I don't think I was suffering postnatal depression. I think it was just like a culmination of all the circumstances and things that I'd been through and the madness of COVID and being locked in. I just had a really, really dark period. But from there I sort of realized I've got 2 small children. I've got to I can't be just crying every day. I have to do something to look after myself. So I got really into well-being again. I got really into mental health and what I would have to do to look after myself to feel better. And from that, I sort of started to build this business. And the first iteration of it was I made well-being classes because we were stuck indoors all the time, and I live in a village, and I'd always relied on going out into nature to feel better, go for a walk, go and be in green spaces. But we were rationed, and we were really, really strict because I had this, child who I thought, was more at risk. I followed all the rules to the T, so much so that if people didn't follow the rules, then I did not like them. Because I was so worried. And I'll even go so far as to say I was one of those people who bleached the food when it came in. I was that
Really?
level. Yeah, I would be. So we would have a Sainsbury's delivery, or at some points my husband would go and get it. But I would be there at the door with a water and bleach spray, rubber gloves on my hands. And when I look at it now, I laugh. But if you could imagine how much of a rigmarole that was every week. And also, I used to get the food from my parents, so I did 2 lots of bleaching everything inside. I was not in a good place. But anyway, I went hell for leather into building these wellbeing classes locally with a TV crew and instructors that I knew, and then using montages of digital nature in the backgrounds, because I did research and found that actually that was really good for your mental health. So when you couldn't get out, then you could look at images of nature, and it's true. There's loads of scientific research that shows it opens up your parasympathetic nervous system in the same way it would do when you're out in nature. So it reduces your current stress and also builds your tolerance to future stresses as well. So that was the first thing I did. But then further I got into like looking at mental health and who did I want to do these classes for, and of course, being a mum, I wanted to help other mums, and because I'd struggled so much. But the more I learned about maternal mental health and everything, and the turning point was when I learned about matrescence. I just felt that giving a well-being sort of like end product wasn't enough, like an end solution. And I felt there was a massive piece that we were missing about educating people about what they were going to experience and how they could look after themselves and why. Like, I'm very much think that the more you know, the better it is for you, because there's so much power in understanding things. And so I mentioned that word matrescence, and it's on my t-shirt here if everybody wants to see it. It's matrescence, like adolescence. So when you become a teenager and you go through adolescence, there is a whole culture around being a teenager. You get taught about it in school, your parents know you're going to do it. Essentially, you're pretty much going through it at the same time as all your peers. Your bodies are all changing together. You're all like, for you guys, your voices are going a bit funny. You're shooting up and down and stuff, and like extra hair and all these things. But as a woman, we go through matrescence, which is the same as adolescence when you become a mother. So from pregnancy all the way through your motherhood journey, and you're changing mentally, physically, emotionally. Your brain is literally rewired, but we just don't know about it. And it's not talked about. And we talk about, yeah, it's tough becoming a new mum, but I found that everything was just about the baby. And I'd done NCT classes, I did hypnobirthing classes, and I thought I was ready because I had a million lists. I made 100 nights worth of dinner. I filled a freezer in the garage with 10 different meals so that we could have a rotation of 2 weeks of different things. We wouldn't have to eat the same thing. But I thought that was me ready. And I didn't realize how much I would change as a person. And I just felt like a completely different person. And granted, I went through a lot of like trauma and different things that other people wouldn't experience. But when I started to research and look at what was happening to women, so many women struggle with their mental health. The official numbers from the NHS are between 1 in 4, 1 in 5. But surveys just more across the board, like there was one from Good Housekeeping a couple of years ago of a few thousand people, and they said 3 in 4 women struggle with their mental health, because those ones from the NHS, they only capture people that are really, really struggling and go and get help. But the problem is as well, the NHS hasn't got the capacity to help everybody. I love the NHS. They've helped my family a lot with everything that we've been through. But, between 5 and 600,000 women have babies every year. They do not have the capacity to help support them. And so I got very much into the idea that a lot of stuff that we could do proactively helping people would stop some of this struggles in the first place. Because if you set people up to understand what they're going to go through and the fact that they will feel different and that they are in like a transition period. So the fact that like you have a baby and you don't feel like yourself, if you know that that's normal, then already that takes a lot of the anxiety around it away. And you know that, yeah, that you are going to feel weird, potentially like for a couple of years. And especially as you're going in and out of work and in and out of maternity leave. And I just felt like at the moment we don't do that enough. And women, like still so many people don't know about matrescence. There's been a big campaign this year by Tommy Tippy and the Peanut Parenting app. And they put a big one-page advert in the New York Times, and then there's been lots and lots of articles and things everywhere since that. But still, I talk to people every day, and they just haven't heard of matrescence.
I don't think I'd heard of it until we first spoke, Lucy, a couple of months back. But there's loads of stuff there that you've said that we can unpick. And I think before we just do a little like kudos to you, right? And kudos to all the mums out there who are listening to this, because as you've already highlighted, it's not an easy journey. And sometimes, especially in all aspects of well-being, the biggest thing is knowing that you're not alone and knowing that what's happening to you. And even if you feel like you're in this cycle and it's awful, you're not alone and you're not the only person who's ever gone through it. Chances are a lot of people that have probably gone through something similar.
Yeah.
And all of the work you're doing, all of the work that, some of those organizations you've mentioned are doing can only help highlight this and help it grow the awareness, like you say, of what's being said. When did you go from so you created this interest, right? Like you can tell from the way you've described your COVID experience and your birth of your kids that you are, you're there for your kids. You want everything to be right. Like you want to make sure everything is, perfect and set up as it should be.
Mm.
When did it go from an interest of well-being, like I'm interested in, all of this, to this is a business idea, I can help others with this?
Yeah, so I'd made these wellbeing classes, and initially I was just thinking, oh, it'd be nice to, because they had bre- um meditations and stuff at the beginning and things, and I was like, oh, it'd be really good to explain the science of that, so I could have an add-on part of this explaining those bits. But then it sort of like grew, and then it was more once I'd heard about matrescence, I was like, wow, there's so much about the education bit. And it's weird because there wasn't like a one point. It's just like it all sort of grew organically because I started sharing my story about everything that happened to me on LinkedIn. And then other women started messaging me and they're like, oh, I'm so glad you've said this because this is really resonating with me. And I've got 7 experts in the program now. And a lot of those women DM'd me because I shared my story. And then we've gone on to work together because they are really passionate and also because they understand, because they've, even though our journeys are different, they've still struggled, and because it is really hard. And it resonates with so many people. And then I think maybe about 3 years ago is when I really got the idea of it and was like, right, I want this. And there were some people that I say organically came together, and then there were a few people I say I headhunted them, which I stalked them on LinkedIn until I sort of like got the confidence to like message them and say, hey, I'm doing this. But it's been really good because everybody who I've approached has come on board. And I think that is because people want to make a difference and that they can see that there's a massive gap in what we're offering for mothers at the moment. Everybody who I speak to who like older women who've had their children, and maybe a bit older and stuff, they're all just like, I wish I had that. I wish I had that. I hear it so many times.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So what are organizations getting wrong today when it comes to supporting mothers?
I think it's not so much that they're getting wrong. I just think that there just isn't enough support out there. I think that we've got better at offering. So there's like the policy stuff. So there's things like making sure that you're giving people enough maternity cover, money, like people who pushed into poverty, like the amount of money that people are meant to survive on. And the thing is, once upon a time, it might not have been so bad, but now you need two incomes. We like everything. The cost of living is so high that you can't afford, to not have that money. So I think that is something, and it's easy for me to say because I know businesses have, constraints. But if we could just have anything, yeah, women need more money, definitely. The flexibility needs to be there of when they're coming back. And I think very much not just about what days you're going to work, but I would like to see a point where people are looking about more about what are the outcomes that people are bringing and their talents rather than, oh, what your exact hours going to be. But that, you work a flexible week and things can move and change because as a parent, you guys know kids do stuff and things happen. And I think that should be across the board for all parents, not just for women. We need flexibility, that employers just understand that people will get their work done because you employ somebody because you trust them and you think that they're talented and that they can do the work. Um, but I also think as well, and this leads on from that, is the fact that it's not just about what you have written in your policies, it's about how people live them in the office or like, in the day-to-day lives, because you need to show people that they can actually do that. And I think that probably comes from leadership, living those values and those policies themselves and saying, I am going to do this. There's a lot of that parenting out loud, like the stuff from Elliot Ray with dads, because things can only get better for mums if dads can be able to do more stuff as well. So, but then there's my side, which is offering people these policies without supporting the actual massive transition that people are going through, I don't think is enough. There's a lot of stuff around menopause, which is fantastic, but we haven't caught up with matrescence. And matrescence is just as much a huge change to women as menopause is. Like menopause, each year you get like 74,000 women leaving their jobs in the first year of after motherhood. So you get women coming back from maternity leave, not being supported enough, not getting enough flexibility. And also, I think that because they've not had enough support when they're off, they're really, really struggling by that point. And then you bring them back into work and it's too much. if you're not offering them right support. So that's why our program goes from when you're 3 months pregnant all the way through to when your child is 2, because then we look after each of those different sections, and people are not left on their own for like 6 to 9 months or a year, because one of the things that people really talk about is how lonely it is. So you go from like I loved my job. I loved being with people. I loved like in a team working together, and suddenly you're at home with a baby. Babies are great and all, but you can still be really lonely with a baby, and like
Yeah.
people talk about the fact of sometimes being home for 8 hours a day on their own. And if you um motherhood can really negatively impact really high performing women as well, because they're used to being in control. I'm quite a control freak myself. And we know babies don't play ball, do they? And
Yeah.
also, so you're doing a lot of like in the background work all the time, every day, just a constant routine of loads of hard work, but nobody's praising you for it. Nobody's saying, "Hey, you've done an you've done an excellent job today, mummy. Well done. Thanks. Thank you so much for changing my nappy 20 times." Or there's none of that. And you don't have that sense of community that you do. So that's why one of the things is that we have a community so that you can be feeling like you're with people, and also the learning element, because I think sometimes your brain can just go a bit dead, like you're just and then you're tired and you're not taking in anything, and it's just all baby stuff, and there's nothing sort of like about you, and a lot of women lose their confidence. And it's not that they're not capable, it's just that their confidence isn't being supported, which is difficult. It's like a juxtaposition, because actually when women's brains get like remodeled through pregnancy, actually loads and loads of leadership skills and amazing benefits come from that for businesses, but they have to look after women to be able to reap those rewards. And there's been a brilliant piece of research released this week by what do you call it? The Motherhood Report by Alexandra Sachs in America. And it says 100% of leadership capabilities tested improved when women became mothers. 100%. Yeah. So everything tested improves when women become mothers. And I think it's really important for businesses to understand that if they're investing in women through this transition period, then they are going to be the ones that win out. And the investment that they make will be massively worth it.
Even just going back to some of the things you mentioned around, like, if, new mums leave when they come back because they don't feel supported, all of
Yeah.
the things you've said, the
Yeah.
costs to a business for then
Oh,
having to then recruit,
hmm.
get somebody else in, retrain them, like it adds up quickly.
Yeah. It's
Um,
huge.
and it feels almost like, it feels like in the past it's always been, oh, women get pregnant, and this is, it's what it's been like, right? Like, oh, she's going off on maternity leave, which isn't the case, is it? This is life. Like,
Yeah.
women get pregnant with a family, or
Yeah.
they you need that support. But I think all the things you've just said there, I think it goes to show that actually businesses aren't equipped to do that, to provide all of that support, support around community, confidence, like, and I think that's where obviously people like you come in, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, I guess, how do we get organizations to that stage, right? How do we get
Yeah.
them to that piece where
Yeah.
they think, actually, we do need to implement this
Yeah.
to
So
support our
yeah,
babies?
and it's definitely look at the return on investment. So the figures that I use are from Oxford Economics, and the Oxford Economics says losing a member of staff or replacing a member of staff costs between 30 grand for a lower member, right up to like 100K on average. And so if you look at a program like ours, we look after your member of staff for 30 months. It's only 2.5 grand plus VAT, which is nothing in comparison to that. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. So making an investment like that, I mean, is a no-brainer, I would say. Obviously, I mean, I would say that obviously. But there are other things that people can do, like our partners, maternity coach. So the maternity coach, um, they provide coaches for people who've coming in and out of maternity leave. They're one of our partners and one of our experts. But having something like that as well is another thing that you can do. There are lots of things, but I think the worst thing you can do is just do nothing, because this is one of the biggest transitions that women will ever go through in their entire life, and they will not come back the same person. And that's not to say that they're going to come back a lesser person at all, because, like I said, they're going to get a massive skills boost, but at the same time, they need support during that period to help them to be able to realize those skills. And at the moment, yeah, it's just not something that's really people aren't just so aware of it. But it's the same way as like with menopause. if you go back 10 years, it just wasn't, it was just like, and people didn't even really talk about it first. I can remember being younger, people just call it, oh, the change. People weren't so comfortable talking about these
Yeah.
things. But I think businesses, and we know that businesses that have more female um, women in leadership, they are more successful businesses. So forward-thinking businesses realize that they want to keep their female talent, and this is something that they can do, invest in to do that. And it's all about being proactive. Don't try and like sort things out afterwards. Invest in doing something that's proactively helping to support at the beginning, rather than looking at the end and going, oh, we've missed a trick here. Now we've lost someone that's amazing, that knows all of our business inside out, and that because how much money are you spending on other training? How much money are you spending on other support in the first place? All that's just gone.
Yeah. I'm definitely seeing this firsthand now. I'm a new father. I've
Yeah.
got a 3-month-old now, and so like
Yeah.
yes, a lot of what you're saying is resonating with me. And I remember um when we first met, and that was like also the first time I learned about Matrescence, and I said to my partner, like, do you know like what this is? Because so much of what you're talking about is like I can see this happening firsthand, and
Yeah.
she just had like she's like, no, I've never heard of it before,
No.
and I'm
No.
just like, yeah, do you know, like I'm wondering why that it hasn't been like taught, not even in like antenatal classes or anything like that.
Mm.
It's like, why is it such a topic that's really only coming to the forefront now?
Yeah. I don't know. And the thing is that it was coined in the 1970s.
Yeah,
That's when they first came up with it, but then it was just like lost in academic textbooks. But I think that when you know and you understand, it's so empowering.
yeah,
Because you
definitely.
just think, "Oh, that's why I feel so weird," or, like that, "That's why I'm really struggling," because it's actually really hard.
Yeah,
And to know that you are changing so much at the same time as trying to have all the responsibilities and, like, challenges of looking after a baby as well, then you can be so much kinder to yourself. One of the key things that I want out of all of this is for women to be able to be kind to themselves, and to learn to be compassionate with themselves, and for businesses to be compassionate with them, but for women to sort of just be kind to themselves. Because I think we are so desperate to do a good job. And I don't know if your partner's like this, because you have this precious little thing that you've brought into the world, and you so badly want to just be perfect. You want to make everything perfect. You want to look after them so well, but you can get lost in that of trying too hard and putting too much pressure on yourself.
definitely. I'm definitely seeing this. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned before around like so with your program, it's like take like good covers like the whole journey. So from when they're pregnant until like 2 years into. Could you like talk a bit more about that, and like what the program looks like in a bit more
Yeah.
detail, like
Yeah.
how
So,
it supports
yeah.
women on that journey?
Yeah, so start off with, as I said, there's an education on demand video series that we drip feed to people. So the fact that you start at 3 months pregnant is because I want people to start when they've got headspace. So because when the baby comes, obviously you're tired, you've got a baby to look after. So that's why you start at 3 months pregnant. So you've got time to take on board this information. So we run through 7 different key elements with experts on an on-demand video series. So there's matrescence, mental health, breath work, maternity leave, nutrition, sleep, and mindfulness. And each one of those is about exploring the topic, gaining tools to help look after yourself. Sleep, obviously, is a big one. Understanding sleep cycles of how a baby sleeps, and how, because there's no magic bullet. You can't, like, I'm not saying you can watch these videos and your baby will just sleep. But if you understand how sleep cycles work, then you can sort of get an idea of how to try and start into a routine. And also being realistic that when you first got a new baby, they don't do that because they're not even advanced enough to be able to do that. So it's things like setting your expectations. So all of that is about being able to look after yourself. So we drip feed the education series to people at the beginning from the 3 months online, but then that's always available to people to come back to, because once you've then got the baby, you could be like, oh yeah, I remember, I want to revisit that. Then we have live sessions with all of the experts from the 7 video series. So we can ask questions, deep dive into things that people are interested in. Then I've also, since I've spent so long building this program, I've got a massive group of experts as well, other experts on women's health, on women's careers. And so we'll have live sessions with them as well. An app is coming very soon. So we'll be able to do everything online and have a community as well. So the all the education series we'll be talking about in the community and drip feeding it again, because sometimes, you know what it's like when you're learning stuff, you sort of like forget it a bit along the way. So the whole idea is that we'll constantly be reinforcing all of these messages to help keep people well and to look after themselves. And then we've also got an in-house midwife. So fortnightly sessions with a midwife all the way through, because the thing is, you often see your midwife at the beginning but then not like later on. And it's not, I mean, there's things with your baby and feeding and all sorts of different things, but there's also a lot of things that happen to women's bodies, and women can often feel really embarrassed and sort of like, so I want to build a safe space where we can always talk about any subject, and our midwife is an incredible woman. She's retired from the NHS now, but she's had a massive long career. So she's seen it, she's done there, she's been there, she's got so much information to share with us. Um, and then we also have partnered with a baby loss charity as well. So if the worst happens, then people can have baby loss counselling through the programme as well. And we've also partnered with a psychotherapy team as well. So if people are struggling, then we can straight away give them a therapy session for each of the people doing the programme. And that's just because, like I said to you, the NHS doesn't have enough capacity. And they did a freedom of information request a few years ago. 20,000 people had gone to the NHS to get help and didn't get it. So you've got to be like really struggling. You go to get help, literally got none. And then the people that did get help were waiting like months. And I was like, this just not, I can just imagine you're struggling so much that you finally, because it takes a lot to even reach out. A lot of people struggle in silence and they don't even reach out, but to actually reach out and try and get the help. So I wanted to know that we can offer like at least one session for everybody, just gets that. And even if people are not, not really badly struggling, but they can sort of like get assessed to see how they are, to know like, you're okay, you're doing all right. But also I think it's a really important session for people to be able to talk about if they have a birth trauma or if something's happened, because so many people have traumatic births nowadays. And if you don't talk about something, it sits on you and it just stays with you. So having a safe space, like in a timely manner that you can just access, is really important to me, to be able to offer to people so that it's not sort of like staying with them and adding to their anxiety.
I think that point is so important of like the community and like being able to like talk about things like post birth. I feel like
Mm.
from my experience, it's almost like you build up to this big event, then you have it,
Yeah.
and then you kind of like in the hospital for one day, and then they're like, okay, on your way, and then like, oh my God, like now it's
Yeah.
just
What
us.
now?
It's like now, what
Yeah.
now? And like it's really intimidating, and like it's really, I think, we had so many questions still, and
Mm.
obviously you see the midwife really early, but then like it kind of just ends. And to
Yeah.
your point, it's like it's having that like the community or somebody to like speak with, especially if you've gone through a trauma, I think is just like so important. And like um yeah, I think something that like everyone should be able to like to access.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so where do you see like the future? So for Matra, like for all of this, like in 5 years' time, what would you like to see? Like where would you like to see it all going?
Yeah, I mean, in 5 years' time, I would like to see that everybody offers something like us. Like, it doesn't have to be us, but I want to see, obviously, I'd like it to be. I mean, we probably can't facilitate everybody, but I would like to see that it's a given that in your benefits package, you are offered something that supports you through your maternity and through Matrescence, and that Matrescence is up there. And it's not just about just offering stuff to women; it's about awareness as well. So one of the things that we're doing is workshops, because like everybody needs to understand about, again, menopause. We want everybody to understand about matrescence so that your managers understand what people are going through and can offer the right support. And it's not just about matrescence per se, but like the whole thing of motherhood, because people go through so many different challenging experiences, whether or not that's through IVF, whether that's through baby loss. Also, the challenges people face when they're neurodiverse, going through the whole system can be very difficult for people. Um, so we want to spread awareness of how to support people and what you should be putting in place to do that as well. But yeah, I want it to be a case of it's like a standardized thing that people get this support, because it is so vitally important. And we want to keep women in work, because keeping women in work is good for women. It will help reduce the gender pay gap. We've got a massive pension shortfall as well, because so many women leave work, and it's healthier families, and you know, so many women can't afford not to be in work now as well. And I think that a lot of people who then leave their careers go back to roles that are like beneath them. And I don't mean that in a funny way. I mean, like, they're not utilizing all their skills and their talent that they have because their confidence has been knocked, because they take time out, because they're not getting the right support. And then they come back and then they're not fulfilling their ambitions and the capabilities that they could be doing. Which and then that means that we're also missing out on businesses. Businesses need talent as well. So it's a loss for everybody, really.
If there's anyone watching this, so say I'm a HR leader and I'm watching this podcast or listening to it, and I've got people off on maternity leave now.
Yeah.
Would you give them, what advice would you give them?
So have a lot of open communication with them. Never make any assumptions about what they do or don't want. And remember that when they come back, they're not necessarily going to be the same as when they left. And it's really good if you can give them a staggered start, if possible at all, and be just really open about your communication about what they can and can't do and how they want to do things. And if you can, like, offer them trial periods of like working like this to see if it works. Does it need to change? And letting them know that they can come to you anytime and actually meaning it, and letting them feel that they can talk to you. And just, yeah, like I said, not making assumptions and not thinking that everyone's going to be the same, because they're not. People are really different. Some people might want to step back a bit. Other people might come back and be like, no, I want to get into it. Like, I'm flying because I talk a lot about negative things, but lots of people have great experiences and they don't, you know, they're fine. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
And they want to come back and get into it, but sometimes they're perceived as being less than, oh, you've had a baby now, so you're not going to be bothered about your career, which isn't true, because in the most part, so many women actually become much more invested in their careers and much more ambitious. Yeah.
And sorry, I keep these questions keep popping into my head. But I feel like I want to ask you because you're passionate.
Yeah.
What would you say is the one thing that you wish somebody had told you when you were, say, pregnant or before
Oh,
you got pregnant?
oh my goodness, to think about how I was going to look after myself and not just about the baby. And I think I did do that to a point. Like, I made all those meals, but I think, yeah, I just think I was really hard to myself, and I wasn't expecting to feel so different. If I could have known about matrescence beforehand, and if I could have understood that I was going to go through this change as well, I think that would have been really, really helpful, because instead my whole world turned upside down because of everything that had happened. And I think I just needed more support, and I think really I should have been offered support. I should have been offered counselling for everything that we went through, because it was really traumatic. And I think maybe if I had have had that, it wouldn't have been so bad when my second son had been born, when we went into COVID. That's why I say about being so passionate about people having that space with the therapy partners, because I feel like this sort of stuff sticks with you. And there's been reports of like women still being able to talk, like when they're in their 70s and 80s, vividly being able to talk about what had happened when they had babies, because the trauma had still sat with them, because it hadn't, like, they'd never like had support with it.
It's huge, isn't it? Like we had a bit of a traumatic birth with both of our kids, and I remember Sophia, like months after
Mm,
having kids and talking with other mums, and mums talking openly about their birth and stuff like that, and that would be the trigger for her. That would be
yeah,
where she would almost like couldn't stand in the same room as these people because she just
no,
had so much that baggage from that hadn't been dealt with.
yeah,
And the confidence thing is another one, isn't it? Like that's really, really big, I think, because I find, and this is my experience, but I imagine it's similar in other households, that for mums, it's a lot harder to make time for yourself. I think
yeah.
as blokes, we don't need to be asked twice, you know, like, and I don't know what it is about our wiring, but if someone says to me, Adam, you know, you've been with the kids all day, do you want to go and go for a walk, go for a workout, go to the pub with your mates, whatever? I'd be like, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. If I was to say the same to my wife, she wouldn't do it. She would almost like it be a challenge for her to, and it's the guilt, isn't it? Of
It's it,
I
it's a
can't.
few different things. I think sometimes you're so tired being with children, and when you're not sleeping very well, and being stuck with them, you are so tired. But there's this strange thing of like where you want a break from the kids, but as soon as you're not with them, there's this strange
Yeah.
sort of feeling that comes over you, and you're like, oh my God, they're going to be. It's not like you don't. It's not like, because I've got a very capable husband who's great, and it's not like I would worry about him. But there's a strange, and it must, it's hormones, it's like the emotional like connection, that it's just difficult. Yeah, so it is making time for yourself, and then you sort of like lose yourself a bit because you've become so obsessed with I am mum, and then it's like, well, who am I? Yeah, definitely, definitely, and it is harder for women as well because they're the ones that stop for ages. If you're off with a baby, then you just stop for ages, and when you're not seeing people and you're not doing work and everything, then your brain just yeah, it goes a bit weird, I think.
If there were like, how can companies who are forward thinking and who do potentially have like good programs in place at the moment, how could they like take the next level? How could they do even better, or like even like, yeah, I guess, how could they implement a program like MAIA? How does that work at the moment?
Yeah, well, just really easily. So at the moment we're doing a pilot. We're just about to launch a pilot at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So we've got 5 businesses signed up, and we're trialing the 14-week. So just doing 2 weeks of each of the different key themes, and then so that finishes in October, and then hopefully we'll be going live properly with the full program from October.
Oh,
So
amazing.
depending on when this podcast goes out, then we could have a couple of spaces left if people want to come on the trial, but I don't know how quick your editing process will be. But if not, then I'd say then just get into contact with me, and I'm very happy to have a talk, and I'm very happy to come and talk to people about matrescence as well. So I do speaking, do workshops. So if anybody wants to learn more, then I'm really happy, and I'm really happy to come and talk to like parenting groups inside organisations as well, just to raise awareness.
Mm,
And anything really, I'm just very passionate about spreading the word about matrescence, because I think that's the key, the first part of the journey. Understand matrescence, and then understand how important it is to support it, and
yeah.
then all the business benefits that come with it, because it's obvious that all the massive benefits that women will get with the support, but there's a huge business case for why it's good for businesses as well, and why it really does have a positive return on investment. So it is all there.
Great. Well, this has been really good talking to you. It's clear that you're obviously passionate about this, and that, it is a subject that we need to be talking more about,
Yeah.
because, like you've already
Uh,
highlighted, it is
Yeah.
such a change in everyone's lives who's involved in the birth of a child, but especially mums.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really good having you on the podcast. Really good to talk to you. If anybody listening wants to learn more, feel free to reach out to anybody here because we'll be
Yeah.
able to facilitate that conversation. But otherwise, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks,
Thank you.
Lucy. Cheers.
Bye.